Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lights Camera Action. Welcome to the Tanya Class. We're studying today chapter 15. Chapter 15 discusses a very, very important aspect in serving God, which is effort. One of the big transitions the school system is going through in the last several decades is by evaluating children not by their accomplishments but by their own capabilities, which has obviously ups and downs. Of course, 40, 50 years ago a child knew that he had to perform well and he worked very hard to perform well. Now the system is a little bit more catered to the needs, so some children could use it as an excuse not to live up to their fullest. On the other hand, there are many more children that are not as capable.
Why won't they live to their fullest? There's an easier way to slide instead.
The olden days you didn't come back with a 100 or with a 95. Everyone was expected to score 100. Is that how you were brought up, David? Or you were already in the post?
I mean,
you were born after the 70s.
Yeah, grades. You didn't get the grade. You didn't get the grade.
I knew someone that her mother would be very upset if she didn't get a 95 or above. Yeah.
Now it's a bit. We look more at the effort that a child puts in, and and it definitely has a lot of advantages. So in serving Hashem, we also have this concept of effort. Not that it's an excuse. A person says, "I'm doing everything I can, so and the rest is not up to me." You could accomplish a lot more than you think. However, the amount of effort that goes in does have a very important role. Not so much about doing less or more. It's about how you do things. There's a saying that the Alter Rebbe, Tanya, once said that just like you call in Yiddish a ganev, thief, is not someone who knows how to steal. It's someone who steals. We all know how to steal, right? It's pretty simple. So too, what's called what do you call in Yiddish a lamdin, a learner, someone who's studious, a smart person is not someone who knows how to learn. Someone who actually goes out and learns. We're going to learn about in chapter 15 about two types. Until now we're learning about a tzaddik and a benoni. We're going to learn about something within two classes within what's called the tzaddik, the perfect person, or even the benoni, the person who has a lot of negativity inside of him that he has to fight. He's always in a struggle, but he always makes sure to make the right decisions. So there are two types within this category of a person who is righteous, or a person who's righteous in his actions, although it comes with a struggle. There's two types. There's someone that's called a servant of God, and someone that is not a servant of God. It's a bit of an oxymoron. He's a perfect. He does everything right. He does all his mitzvahs, and he does everything right, but he's still not considered a servant of God. There's a verse that the Alter Rebbe opens up, chapter 15. Because now that we learned what a tzaddik is, and what a benoni is, a tzaddik is someone who has no evil inclination, and a benoni, which is an ordinary person, someone like all of us, who we have an evil inclination, but we also have the ability to overcome it. And that's why human beings, if they do something wrong, they're held accountable. We're not animals. We can't blame our deeds on our tendencies. You know what's going to happen if everyone's going to use that excuse. You could afford to in very extreme cases, to say that people are not in control of their deeds. But a regular, healthy person is in control of his actions. And the benoni is someone who's in total control of his actions. Most people are in control.
The benoni is?
The benoni is in total control. The regular people are in control most of the time, or some of the time, or a little of the time.
So benoni is a higher level than just common people.
He's not really a higher level. He's just a person who's an ordinary person who uses that capability that he was given. You're all. That's actually what we were learning about last week. That the opening statement of the chapter was in chapter 14. A Beinoni is something that is midas kolodam. It's applicable for anyone. Every single human being can be a Beinoni because it doesn't require any special traits, special soul. It's just you have self-control. You use it sometimes. Make sure to use it the whole time. That's all it takes to be a Beinoni. It's nothing extra special. It's just a person who could overcome his challenges, which we all can. We all could. So now we're going to delve a little bit deeper. We're going to zoom in a little more, and we're going to discuss two kinds of a Beinoni, two kinds of a tzaddik. There's a verse, one of the prophets, Malachi, actually, he was the last prophet. So he said like this: "V'shaftem orizim," you should turn and observe the difference between a tzaddik, a righteous person, and a rasha, an evil person, and the difference of Oved Elokim is someone who serves God, and the person who does not serve God.
At first glance, you would think that obviously what they're saying is that tzaddik is who serves God, and the rasha who doesn't serve God. That's what you would think.
That's the first glance, but
Look.
What the prophets and the Torah, we don't use extra words. It's actually redundant. And that's the Gemara when the Talmud brings this verse, and the Talmud asks, a tzaddik is a servant of God.
By definition already.
That's what a tzaddik is. A rasha, an evil person, is someone who's not a servant of God. So the verse is actually just repeating itself again. Sometimes you say it's for poetic reasons, it's a poetic license, but we're talking about scripture. We're talking about every letter over here is the word of God. It's not just poetry. Although there are some commentaries that do sometimes explain that redundance as a form of poetry, but we generally try to find an explanation, and there usually is. It always is. Usually we know it, in most cases. So the Talmud answers that the first part of the verse is talking about, come and observe the difference of a righteous person and an evil person. Obviously righteous means righteous, evil means evil. But the second part, see the difference between a servant of God and one who does not serve Him. The Gemara actually says that it's talking about two classes, two categories within a complete tzaddik. There's a tzaddik who is a servant of God, and a tzaddik who is not, who is called someone who does not serve God. What does that mean? How does that work? How could he say that there's a tzaddik, a righteous person who is not a servant of God? We just said he's a tzaddik gomer, he's a perfect tzaddik. So the Talmud answers that there is a very big difference between someone who repeats his study 100 times and someone who does 101, goes the extra mile. There's a big difference between doing what you find is within your capabilities and going the extra mile, working a little harder, doing more than you would think you can, and that makes a difference. So a tzaddik who does not serve God, he's talking about a tzaddik who he's a good-natured fellow, and he likes to do what's right, but he never puts an extra effort. He does his what's required of him. He does it well. He doesn't make it over 101. In those days, before they had print, the truth is it wasn't just because of the print. There is actually a prohibition against writing down the oral Torah. Hashem gave the Torah in two sections: the written Torah and the oral Torah. The oral Torah was meant to remain oral, to be passed on from rabbi to student.
Like midrash, or what exactly?
The Talmud, the Mishnah, everything. It is just over as when sages saw that that the Jews are going to be dispersed in different countries, there won't be any communication. So to keep us all one nation, so they wrote down the Mishnah. The same thing happened with the Talmud a few hundred years later, and that's what all Jews follow. All religious Jews follow the Talmud, the halacha, which is written down, was recorded, but it wasn't meant to be written in writing. And therefore, in the times of the Mishnah and the Talmud, even then, when they had written copies, it wasn't as available as it is now. We're talking even 300, 400 years ago, there was one Talmud in a city. This is even when print became available. And today it's much cheaper, it's much more convenient. So those days, how did you remember your studies? You had to memorize everything by heart. Just imagine what it meant to be a rabbi 2,000 years ago. It meant you had to know the whole Mishnah and the whole Talmud by heart. It wasn't written down. And
but that's what they're doing, right? That's how they spend their time. Right?
That's what they were doing. They were studying, and in order to memorize it and keep it in your memory, you have to repeat it 100 times.
Their brain wasn't clobbered.
It wasn't, but even then they had to work very hard to memorize. They memorized much more. Yeah. Yes, they had the.
What?
Cluttered.
Cluttered.
So the tzaddik who repeats his study, he reviews his study 100 times, he is called someone who doesn't serve God. Meaning, he's not putting in effort. He's doing
He's not going the extra mile.
He's not going the extra mile. He's doing what he has to do. And then there's another class of a tzaddik who puts in effort, works extra hard. He goes 101. Now when he's about to finish, he does 100 times and says, okay, now I can go take a nap. He says, no, it's not enough. One more time.
One more push-up.
And it's just one more time, but it makes a very big difference. Mathematically, 101 and 100 is just the difference of 1. It's 1 more than 100. But here we're not talking about the amount, the quantity of times studied. We're talking about how much effort was put in. And for a person to review until 100 is, since he's used to it and he knows this is the way you do things, so he does it. In order to the 101st time is a whole different story. It requires a whole another level of commitment.
It's like a new threshold, kaviyachol.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Precisely so. It's a whole new level because it requires much more effort. It's doing more than you're accustomed to, more than your regular behavior.
Signing up for PhD.
Huh?
Signing up for PhD.
And
After
then,
masters, you want to sign up for PhD. It's like a whole different.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's a
Different studies.
Yeah.
Like,
Here we're not talking about so much a different study. It's the same study. You're learning the same thing, just one more time. But when you're ready, when you're about to you already see the end, and then you do it again. You do one more time. That makes a big difference. So now we answered a question, the Talmud's question, about the redundance. We have a tzaddik and rasha. Tzaddik, look at the difference of a tzaddik versus a rasha, righteous man versus an evil man, and the difference between an Ovid Elokim, a servant of God, and the one who doesn't serve. So we explained what the difference is between the two parts. But if you examine the verse one more time, you realize that a tzaddik is mentioned twice over here. A tzaddik, a rasha, and then within a tzaddik there's two classes. So then there's the regular tzaddik and there's the extra special tzaddik. So we still have the redundance between a tzaddik and a servant of God, because a servant of God is a tzaddik.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we were taught about the difference of a tzaddik and a Beinoni, it fits into place. We're talking about 4 different personalities over here. We have a tzaddik, a rasha, a servant of God, and one who does not serve him. It's not just an explanation of the first part. We're talking about 4 different personalities. The difference of a servant of God and a tzaddik is like the difference of a thief, of a ganiv, and someone who knows how to steal. Similar, not exactly the same. The term in Hebrew for a servant of God is Oved Elokim. In Hebrew, we have things could be written in 3 forms: in past tense, in future tense, and present. So, a tzaddik is someone who we would call actually proper grammar an Eved Elokim, which we translate as a servant of God. Oved Elokim is someone who is serving God. he cannot claim fame of being, I am a servant of God, because to be a servant of God, you have to really, really change yourself, your whole inside, your whole, your inclinations. And that is something that only a tzaddik could accomplish and say. So the verse actually, when the verse says that Oved Elokim, someone who is serving God, is now in the middle of the activity of serving God, that means that he is working on himself to become a servant of God. When he accomplishes that, he becomes a tzaddik. We call him a servant, a Eved Elokim. Oved Elokim, someone who is working, he's currently in the process of becoming a servant of God. So the first half of the verse, come and observe the difference of a tzaddik and a rasha, of a righteous person and an evil person, is exactly as it sounds. The second part of the verse, between Oved Elokim asher lo avodoi, we're talking about someone who's not yet a tzaddik. He's not a rasha. He's not doing anything wrong. He's doing everything right. And he's not yet a tzaddik either, because he has a lot of desires in him that are not that prove that he's far from being a servant of God. A servant of God is someone you could declare that everything in his life, starting from his deeds and ending in his emotions and his feelings and his beliefs, are all about God. That's why he's worthy of the title, a servant of God, a Eved Hashem.
That's not Benoni.
That's a tzaddik.
Right.
And the first part is telling you, look, there's a difference. There's two extremes. The prophet Malachi is saying, come see the difference between a tzaddik, someone who's totally perfect, and a rasha who's on the total other extreme. He's not only does he want evil things, he behaves in an evil way. But then realize that in the middle, between a tzaddik and a rasha, there's another two personalities. There's a Oved Elokim, someone who is serving God. He's trying to become a servant of God. He's trying to become a tzaddik, but he's not yet there. But at least his deeds are there. Not his emotions, not his inclinations, but his behavior is there. And then there's another one who's called Lo Avod. He's someone who's not a rasha. He's not doing anything evil, but neither could you say that he is serving God. Why? Why is that so?
Because he's there?
Huh?
Because he's reached it?
No, then it would be a tzaddik. It would be a Eved Hashem. A tzaddik is a servant of God.
Is there something holding him back?
No, I mean.
Between these two people?
No, the one who's not going all the way, like you're saying, the Benoni that's not the tzaddik, something's holding him back?
For the Benoni who's not a tzaddik, usually it's the fact that he doesn't that he has a Yetzer Hara, that he has that animal soul that's holding him back.
Mm-hmm.
Here we're talking about between. We're not talking about neither a tzaddik or a rasha. We're talking about a Benoni. Benoni means the guy in the middle. And there's two types of a Benoni. There's a Benoni who puts in effort to overcome his battles, and there's a Benoni who still has to win battles, but he doesn't have to put in as much as effort into the battles. And that's why we don't grant him the title of, we don't call him a rasha, obviously, he's not doing anything evil, but he cannot be called a Oved Hashem, someone who is working, because he's not working for various reasons. One reason might be that he was created with the right temperament to be a Benoni. And some people have it harder to struggle. Some people, their struggles are easier. They're not. If this person will do some soul searching, he's going to realize that he's far from the truth. But what do you need to be a good Jew? What do you have to do? You have to study Torah and do mitzvahs. Now, for some people, to study Torah is very tough. It's very hard. Not everyone is made to sit down for 9 hours a day and study. There are people that have a hard time with that. So, as a Jew who he has that type of nature, he's a bit of a more jumpy person. He's a bit more of a people's person. He has to go out. He has to, he can't sit and focus for so long. For him to train himself to get into that type of focus requires a lot more effort. Someone, by contrast, who was born with a more studious personality, he could. What's his struggle? His struggle is he could use this time to study Talmud or Chassidus, or he could use this time to read a book on physics or math or medicine. They both interest him. His inclination is an inclination which is which is more receptive, which is more made. It's easier for such a person to behave as a Jew, to study, because he likes to study. And his battle is going to be not such a tough battle. He's not a tzaddik. If he was a tzaddik, he only want to study Torah. He wouldn't want to look at any other secular study. He wouldn't be interested in it. His battle is, not every second that he's sitting in front of the Gemara or the Chumash, he's fighting with himself. I want to go out. I want to go watch a game. I want to
Party.
No, he once he opens the book, he gets into it. He enjoys it. You hear people say how it's so sweet. It's such a pleasure to study Torah. So many people feel that way, not because they're holy. For someone to feel a pleasure and to feel fulfilled from studying Torah could be because he's an intellectual personality.
They see the value of.
Either they see the value, or they see they just enjoy it. There's a very fascinating story that the previous Rebbe wrote. A story about the Baal Shem Tov. And the gist of the story was that there was a certain individual who lived in Prague, and he was a very big Talmid Chacham, but he didn't have respect for Kabbalah. And for example, and in general, he was very, very intellectual, very analytic type of guy. And when his wife would pick up the children to kiss the mezuzah, he would laugh at her. He says, "Why are you making them kiss hides of animals?" He was that type of person. And he had a son who went on his ways, but he took it a step further. He was a very analytical, very smart guy. And he actually would sit, he really went off the derech, went off the way of Yiddishkeit. He married a non-Jewish wife, and he behaved like a poritz, like a count.
What is Paritz?
Poritz. Poritz was like a landowner, like a prince. And this gentleman was leading but one of the things that he would do every day was he would take a Gemara and study. Without a yarmulke on his head. On Shabbos he would sit with a cigarette or a cigar and study Gemara.
The same guy said about the comment with the parchment? That guy?
His son. His father was a religious Jew. But he had that approach of just what you understand, So his son didn't grow up with emunah, with excitement, with holiness to Yiddishkeit. He dropped it all, and he just enjoyed studying.
The father must have been cynical if he's saying that it's just parchment. He was
cynical. He was cynical about it, and he was like, you meet some of these people today, like they're practicing Jews, but they don't see any holiness and there's no preciousness in the mitzvahs. So this is and the Baal Shem Tov sent not the Baal Shem Tov, I'm sorry. Either Rabbi Levi Liberow, one of Baal Shem Tov's predecessors, he sent this man's great nephew. Wanted to bring it back, and so his teacher was Rabbi Levi Liberow, and he taught him different yichudim, different kavanot and things, and he managed to bring this person back to the right path. So you see that the person could really just enjoy. Could have the sense that he likes studying, and his struggle as a Beinoni is not the struggle. I want to go out to the street, and I'm going to force myself, and I'm going to stay, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to study now. That's a very tough struggle. It's that's extremes, and such a person, for him to study not only means choosing between two things that you like. It's actually the going out there and having a good time, having a party is what you're naturally inclined to do, and studying is going against your nature. Then there's someone who likes to study. So for him, the struggle would be not study or don't study. It's, should I study science? Should I study physics? Or should I study Torah? That's a struggle. So obviously, it's much easier. It requires much less effort. And let's take the other side. Every side, there's the flip side. Every coin has two sides. Yeah, a person who has that nature, they call it in Hebrew, in Yiddish, Mara Shchayra. Is more subdued, a more calmer personality. He's a guy that likes to study. So such a person, for him to dance a Simchas Torah is also a very important thing. It's not his nature. Yeah, the party goer, the learning part of Judaism is where he has a hard time. But the Simchas Pesach Sheva and Simchas Torah and joy in a mitzvah is something that he's more inclined. He's a more energetic person, and so for a Mara Shchera, for a calmer person, for that type of personality to go and dance with the Torah is something which is against his nature. He has a harder time. But obviously, if we look at the two, if we had a choice how to be born, we want to prepare our lives in a way that will have the minimum amount of struggles. We would choose to be born someone who likes to study, because even someone who doesn't dance in Simchas Torah with so much energy, he's not doing an Aveira. But someone who likes to party, someone with that personality, it's much easier for him to fall into sin. The Rebbe once related a very interesting tale that there was once a person who was not a chassid, he was a parush. A parush is like a hermit. He sat and studied the whole time and prayed. He didn't pray too much, but he studied. He never really stepped out of the Beis Medrash. He really and then he's learning the halacha that about someone who eats chalef, someone who eats forbidden fat. So he's trying to understand why would a person eat fat? Why would a person want to, it says if someone does it, he has to give a certain carbon. Why would anyone want to do this? Yes, I have to taste fat. I have to taste chalef.
I think it's very. I knew someone. It was very tasty. They said.
So this person didn't really know how to eat chalef. Well, only thing he knew that's made out of fats. And back in those days, the candles were made out of fats. Now they make it was paraffin, but then that was more available than beeswax.
Tallow, whatever they call it. Yeah.
So he sees a candle. It's a little tallow.
I think so. Double L, T-A-L-L.
Yeah. So he sees the candle in front of him. He says, "Oh, this is chalef. I let me see what the person over here really wants." So he takes the candle and gives a bite. He spits it out. He says, "This is what the Aveira tastes like. Why would anyone want to do an Aveira? Why would anyone want to eat this chalef, this forbidden fat?" And that's what kept him. That was the extent of so Olam Hazeh. This person is not a tzaddik. This person, you see, he actually did an Aveira by eating that candle, but he didn't enjoy it because that wasn't his type of enjoyment. Just to wrap up this point, there's a fascinating story. It's brought in the Gemara, and the Alter Rebbe explains it in one of his discourses in Torah, that there was one of the 10 martyrs, the Asar Rogei Malchus. His name was I can't remember right now. So he was arrested by the Roman government for teaching Torah, and he was being taken to death. Chanina ben Tradian, I think his name was. Chanina ben Tradian. So he was being led away, and he asked, while he was being led away, he asked one of his colleagues or his teacher, am I going to the world to come? Am I going to am I going to Gan Eden? Yeah. So he replied to him, any action come your way, any good deeds. So he told him, yeah, I do remember that last Purim I prepared money for my meal, for my Purim feast, and there was a poor man who came by, he needed tzedakah, and I gave him part of that money. So I told him, if that's the case, you're going to Olam Haba. So the question is asked, the person is being led to death. He's about to be executed for teaching Torah when the Roman government outlawed it, and he has a doubt: is he going to Olam Haba? He's one of the Asar Rogei Malchus. These are special Jews that they're throughout. We have many great tzaddikim. All the Tanoim were great men, but out of the Tanoim, these were the holiest. So
extraordinary.
They were extraordinary. They were all extraordinary. And he was one of the one of the top 10. And he has a question, am I going to Olam Haba? So the Alter Rebbe explains like this, that the truth is, if you think about it, not only Jewish people give away their whole life for study. It says you had many Greek philosophers that they lived in poverty and they abandoned all worldly pleasures and to pursue their studies. This had nothing to do with God. This had everything to do with their nature. They were inclined. This was their nature. This is what they enjoyed. They rather die than live a life of a party goer. That's not what they were interested in. So Rabbi Chanina was worried. Perhaps my whole obsession, so to speak, with Torah was because I'm such a personality. So he told him, his teacher asked him, did you do anything which was against your personality? And he told him, yes, there was an instance where I do recall an instance when I shared my money with someone. And this is someone who's such a personality, who likes to study, is sort of an introvert. He's not someone who goes out and gives tzedakah. That's not his thing. The fact that you went out of your way and gave tzedakah shows that even when you studied, you did it for the sake of heaven. You did it for Hashem, not just because this is your nature. And that helped him determine whether what he was doing it was effort that he was putting into it, or he was doing it just because it's his nature.
Well, the Shem Shemaim.
He was doing it L'Shem Shamayim. So we take this point over here, that of course it's easier to be, for someone to be a good Jew if he's a more tame personality. It turns out to be that he has an easier time. His struggles are not as hard. And such a person, he's not a tzaddik. The fact that you like studying doesn't mean nothing. That you could be doing it because of your nature. Now, even if you're doing it l'shem shamayim, it takes much less effort than someone who's not his personality. For someone who likes to study because Hashem told me to, is easier than someone who doesn't like to study and he's studying nevertheless because Hashem told him to. This person he also likes it, and it's also a mitzvah. And someone else, for him, it's just a mitzvah. He has no pleasure in it.
One guy's a secular person. He likes to learn. He likes to.
I wouldn't say call him secular, but he's inclined towards wisdom, towards science. He's a book guy. He's a reader. Yeah, of course, all parents wish that their children enjoy school. Not every child enjoys school. So a kid who likes to learn usually will do a better job in school. So too, a Jew who likes to study, he's into wisdom, he'll definitely feel more comfortable in yeshiva. In the past century, when there was a lot of yeshivas that Jews were not allowed to go to college in Russia and most of the world, and that's what happened was everyone went to yeshiva. It had a lot of leaders of secular movements that took away a lot of youth from Yiddishkeit, hundreds and thousands. It was really catastrophic. A lot of these guys, they were people that were kafir, they were heretics. They didn't believe in anything. They studied. They were big Talmidei Chachamim. A lot of times the Yevisektia were now coming into the month of Tammuz when the previous Rebbe was released from prison.
Sexy? No?
The Yevisektia. Yevisektia meant in Russian the Jewish section of the Communist Party. The Goyish communists, the non-Jewish communists, didn't disturb him so much. If Jews were studying Torah, it was mainly the Jewish ones. And a lot of times you had a case where the Jewish policeman, the Jewish KGB man, was a bigger Talmud Chacham than the person who he arrested. And he was able to tell him hundreds of pages of Gemara. All these guys, they learned in yeshiva because they had no other outlet for their intellectual pursuits besides in yeshiva. But you see how since their approach was not I want to study Torah, rather I want to study, and I'd rather study science, but the government doesn't let me, so I'll study Torah. So it doesn't really, the fact that a person likes to study doesn't mean he likes Hashem. So of course someone who has such a nature has easier time to develop to make the right choices. He's already a step ahead. He has a head start. But it doesn't really mean that he's a tzaddik at all. And it may mean that he's a Beinoni if he always makes that choice to study Torah and not to study other things, or whatever his challenges are. But then we have another example. Yeah, there's people that they're just not so excited, hot-blooded, and they don't have an urge to look at everything that comes their way in the street. Some people have an easier time with this taiva, with this desire that most men have. Some people have it easier, not because of God, just because their nature is that way, and they have other issues. Like I said, they have to learn how to get excited from a mitzvah. They don't get excited from anything. These people, they're cold-blooded, they're cool, so the fact that, so of course, again, it makes it much easier if someone doesn't have this struggle. It makes life as a Jew a hell of a lot easier. But it doesn't mean that he's a tzaddik. It means that you're a Beinoni who was lucky. And if the truth is, and if you take a second glance at this personality, actually the Beinoni who was born with all these tendencies, he doesn't like to learn, he likes to have a good time, he likes to party, he actually, Hashem brings him closer to becoming an Oved Elikim. That's what we said. There's the tzaddik on one extreme, there's the Rosh on the other extreme, then there's the Oved Elikim, the servant, the one who serves God, and the one who does not. A tzaddik is not called Oved Elikim, someone who's serving God, because a tzaddik already is called a servant of God. He got to that point. He accomplished it. Now he not only what he does is what God wants, he also wants what God wants. So this man is he's a Eved Hashem. A Beinoni is someone who's Oved. He's constantly in a battle to be a servant of Hashem. He's working on it the whole time. So this Oved Hashem, this someone who is currently serving God. So this type of person, if he's born with tendencies which make it harder for him to do what's right, the truth is that he's a higher level if he will overcome those challenges, because everything that he accomplishes comes with a lot of effort. The cold personality or the studious type doesn't have to put so much effort into his mitzvahs, into his Torah, into his prayer. It's natural to him. There isn't a lot of effort here. The person who has the opposite tendency and he overcomes it, he's Oved Elikim. He automatically, every time he makes a victory, he's put up on a pedestal. He's a step higher.
He put a lot more effort in.
He put much more effort into what he did. Another situation that could happen, another difference is that someone who's naturally inclined towards these things, he has to spend also much less time in contemplating about Hashem, because his nature wants things that usually Hashem wants. Someone who's not like that, he has to contemplate a lot. He has to work a lot on his meditation and on his focus on godly themes. Some people, it's enough that they have a good education and a good temperament, and they do what's right. People who don't have the right temperament, who don't have the right education, they have to put in a lot more effort into bringing themselves to doing what's right. So this person is not an Oved. He's not a worker. He's not a fighter. He has it easy. He has struggles, but minimal struggles, and not hard struggles. The struggle is like, for example, should I read a scientific paper, encyclopedia, or should I read some Gemara or Chassidus? That's his, and they're both equally intriguing for him. So he has to just make that choice. That's all. That's pretty much the amount of effort that is required of him. Whereas the other type of Beinoni, who he doesn't like reading scientific papers, and he doesn't like reading Gemara, he just likes going to party at night or by day or whatever it is, for him to overcome that desire is much harder, and therefore when he does overcome it, he's working really hard. He's you could look at this guy and say he's working. He's constantly in a battle. Now we have, if anyone thinks, okay, so this is who I am, and this is, the way I'm born is going to define if I'm a Oved Hashem, if I'm the higher level of the Beinoni, the one who's fighting, and he puts more effort or less. The truth is, even if you started out as a fighter, and over time, a habit becomes second nature, things are much easier for you. Again, you could fall into this trap of getting used to things and getting used to the way you are, and getting used to praying, getting used to learning, and it's again over time much less effort is required. And in order to bring yourself to be that higher level of the Beinoni, the Oved Hashem, someone who's constantly fighting, once you feel that a certain area became already less of a struggle, then you have to be like a mountain climber. He reached the peak of what's a tall mountain?
Mount Everest.
What's a lower mountain?
Hosanna.
Hosanna is the lowest. Fiji.
Machu Picchu in Peru.
Yeah, let's say so. He climbed Machu Picchu. He got to the peak. So if he just wants to, he's not a mountain climber. He's just going on a trip. He'll be happy. He'll go home. He'll have a good time. He's done. He'll have some pictures. But a real mountain climber or a real marathon runner, once he managed to, he does 30 miles. That's not enough. He's going to go for a bigger marathon if that exists. He's another guy that climbed Machu Picchu. If he's a real mountain climber, he's gonna go for the Everest. He's not gonna stay. For a person to retain, to be able to say that I am a Oved Elokim, I am someone who's fighting. So it's not enough that 3 years ago or 10 years ago, what you're doing now was a fight. Once you get used to it, okay. Now, and the same thing is a person who naturally is inclined to do what's right. He doesn't want to stay that way. He wants to put an effort. And for that, you have to choose things that you don't. Everyone has areas that he's gonna have to put in more effort. For, like I said before, usually the studious type is not someone who's gonna run to dance a Simchas Torah. It's not what he gets excited about. And for him to dance a Simchas Torah is his effort. He wants to be called a servant of Hashem, as someone who's currently serving God. He's gonna have to bring himself to dance a Simchas Torah, to do it with excitement. For that's the area that he has to put an effort. And if I got used to something, habit became second nature. So, and even though 10 years ago or 2 months ago it was hard for me to do this, now it's easy for me. I have to reach for a greater height. I have to choose projects that require effort. So not only is it about doing what's right, if we could sum up this chapter, it's about trying to look for areas that we need to invest effort. We need to run the extra mile. And it might not be so much in quantity. Like you said, the difference is learning 100 times and learning 101 times. But this 101 makes a big difference. And actually the Gemara brings an example. Yeah? It works this way. Back in those days it was with donkeys. So the way it worked, you wanted to take a taxi, so you had to get on a donkey or a horse. So the fixed rate of the donkey drivers, whatever we call them, the guys that would take you on the ride, the wagon driver, would be for 10 parcel, let's say 10 miles, for $1. Yeah, that was the fixed rate. But if you wanted to go 11 miles, then the price will jump
to the 20-mile one.
Yeah. For 11 miles, you paid $2,
Okay.
2 zuzim, whatever it was. Let's say. So why is that so? Because 10 miles is the regular trip. This is what they're accustomed to do. Yeah, you think especially when you learn in halacha, a person is supposed to be honest. Yeah. Is it fair?
No, it should be only
$1.10,
yeah.
right? The person is actually cheating. No, the truth is he's not cheating, because work you pay for effort. 10 miles is the regular thing for the driver to do. When he has to go 11 miles, the effort to do that 11th mile is as hard as doing 10 miles. That's why he deserves to be paid for that 1 mile what he was paid for the first 10 miles. And same things with serving Hashem, that there's in mitzvahs they have quality and quantity. Yeah, we know that we always hear about the scales that Hashem, on Rosh Hashanah, He judges the world. So we look at someone, we we think that this guy does more mitzvahs than Averis, this guy does. So the Rambam teaches us, you should know, that it doesn't work that way, because only Hashem, you could measure the quantity, how many mitzvahs. This person puts on tefillin every day. You have this person who didn't grow up in a religious home, and he doesn't really even understand why it's so important on tefillin, but he's a Jew, and someone tells him, you're Jewish, come put on tefillin, and he does it on Fifth Avenue. You put on tefillin in shul, around people that are like you. This guy in Fifth Avenue might be a little embarrassing, and does it anyway. So it could be for him putting on tefillin one time is worth your 20 years of putting on tefillin. And maybe we have no idea how to evaluate what a mitzvah is worth. A lot of it has to do with the effort. We could evaluate this for ourselves. When we know that the mitzvah that we need to put in extra effort, that mitzvah is worth, it might be one more time. Instead of 100 times reviewing, you reviewed 101. But for this one more time, it's worth the same as much as everything that you're used to. Things that come easy, things that you're used to doing or became easy for you, they're not as the value drops. If you wanna be able to call yourself, I'm someone who's serving Hashem, I'm working on putting in effort, you have to do things that are hard. You cannot get extra points for effort and do easy things and have an easy life. Someone wants to get fame for climbing mountains, he has to climb not Har Sinai, he has to climb Mount Everest. So if a person wants to be called if a person wants to be called a servant of God, someone who's trying to become a servant of God, he has to try, and trying means something that's a bit hard. The word that we use is avoda, oved Elokim. The reason why, which literally translates as work, service, but oved, the word avoda comes also from in Hebrew it's called tanning leather. Leather is one of those things that you take a hide till it becomes leather. It requires months of work. And the same thing applies. The concept of avodah is that my godly soul wants to do what's right. That's what it's made to do. It's holy. It's godly. It's a part of God. The reason why a Jew is sent down to the world, in a sense, is mainly for the things that are hard, for the effort. The point is to refine yourself, and refining yourself is only when it's not easy. When things don't come easy to you, and you work hard on them, you overcome those challenges. That's when you really transform yourself. That's when you really fulfill the purpose why you were sent down to the world. The godly soul, to do mitzvahs, could have stayed up. The godly soul loves Hashem when it's a soul, when it's in Gan Eden, it does everything right. The purpose is to come down to the world, and sometimes it's worth. The truth is, you think about it, the soul is so holy. It comes down to the world. Seldom does a soul come out of the world as clean as it came into the world. Yeah, so every soul is going to do, at least maybe eventually it's going to become a Beinoni, but it's going to get very dirty in the process. So why did Hashem do this? Why? Because a mitzvah that's done with effort, a mitzvah that's done when it's not easy, might be very small in quantity, but in quality it's worth tremendously, infinitely more than a mitzvah that's done easy. And it's worthwhile to send an neshama down from Gan Eden, where it's involved in absolute 100% holiness, godliness, to a world which is 100% the opposite, and to do a mitzvah in this world. That mitzvah is going to shine so much brighter than all the mitzvahs that it could do in Gan Eden. Because it's so dark, because it's so hard, you do it anyway, that raises it to a whole new level. It's like the donkey drivers who would get paid for the extra mile the same amount that they got paid for the first 10 miles. So, and we'll just end off with a very nice point, something you can think about along these lines that we learned about it actually we say it in davening every day. Yeah, so the Rebbe Rashab once heard in the name of the Alter Rebbe. This is the oilam. The people think that avodah means serving Hashem has to be with a lot of fanfare, a lot of noise. The truth is not that way. The Alter Rebbe tells us something that we say in davening every day. Talk about talk about what we did in the Beis Hamikdash. So one of the description goes like this: Olav HaKeves, the Kohen would go up the ramp. And he turned to the Seviv was like a little area, little walkway around the altar, around the Mizbeach. He would come to the south side and he would sprinkle some blood to the east side, and sprinkle some more blood to the north side, and then to the west side. So, which is Merova. So the avoid the serving Hashem is not about. Not everyone has to notice. It's a lot of inner work that you have to do. But the way it works is like this. Allah Bakevish, you have to elevate yourself a little bit. Walk up the ramp. Be ready to elevate yourself. Upana la Seviv. Upana means turn, focus your attention on what's going on around you. Have a look at yourself. How your life is going. So when a person does this, he dedicates some time to focus on his spiritual situation. He's going to make his first turn to Dermis, to the south. South is warmer, right? North is cold.
From where?
Huh?
Depends where you live.
Florida.
The south is always warmer. So you start, you're ready to elevate yourself. You turn and you start thinking. So it's going to become a little bit warmer, a little bit more. You become a little bit more enthusiastic about serving Hashem. Then you're going to turn to the east, Mizrachis. In Hebrew, east is Mizrach. Mizrach is also the reason why east is called Mizrach is because that's where the sun shines. The sun goes up. The sun rises. So you're going to become a bit more warm. You're going to become a bit more illuminated. You're going to see some light. And then you're going to go to the north. North is the cold side. The Yitzhar is on the left side and the north side. With this warmth and light, you're going to be able to defrost and warm up and illuminate also the Yitzhar to the point that you come to Marovis. Marovis means is west. It also has the same word as sweet, Orev. Which means that when a Jew serves Hashem and he illuminates his left side, he ends up taking that left side and making it sweet, transforming it. Instead of being dark and bitter,